Okay, where is the stock market headed? Where is Bitcoin headed? Where is property markets headed? This is Pablo coming to you from not obviously from Treasure Island, but from a new location. But we're going to analyze the markets nonetheless. A lot of interesting things happening in the markets right now, and you hope you are as relaxed as I am. Let's go. Okay, so basically, if you have been following what I've been talking about, just in terms with the longer YouTube videos, you will see that the last two videos have been pretty much spot on about what's happening in the market. And although we don't get things 100% right, nobody does, but the last few videos have been pretty much correct. Particularly these last two, we've been talking about these big bounces. About 5 weeks ago, one day after the CPI numbers came out to be 9.1% and markets dropped, but then bounced up on the same day, I said, okay, we're experiencing peak inflation. That video went out to my Discord one day afterwards and then became public 2 days after it went to my Discord. So as always, videos go out to my Discord first and then I make it public 2 days afterwards. So what I'm talking about with peak inflation is as inflation peaks, right, that's the blue line here. As inflation peaks, markets tend to bottom and they tend to bounce up. As inflation peaks, markets tend to bottom and bounce up. This is the SP500 we're looking at, right? Inflation, blue line, peaks, then the markets bounces up. So we all know this if we've been watching the video from 5 days ago, or from 5 weeks ago. And of course, the SPY, the SP500 has bounced up a lot because this is SP500 we're looking at, we're comparing. Not too much point looking at the NASDAQ before them, because we're looking at back at the 70s. We're looking at, say, what is this? That's Bitcoin. We're looking at 1976, 74, 1970. And again, for those who haven't seen my earlier videos, we're looking at this period because it's stagflation. It's more comparable to the current environment we're in. Not exactly the same, but still more comparable. And then in my last video, which came out about 1 week ago, I think, pretty much 1 week ago, if you saw my last video, what I was saying is, well, be careful of a pullback for this week, even though I still think we're in a big bounce. But, okay, so 5 weeks ago, the video came out around here, I think, and we've had that big bounce since then. And then about a week ago, my video came out here saying I am still overall leaning bullish, as in this trend I expect it to continue. But in the short term, I'm expecting probably a pullback because one is hitting the top of that channel. See, you could almost say that the SPY SP500 has been going down according to this channel. If you don't like the channel, then at least you could say there's a falling trend line here. It hits that falling trend line, and as in my Discord, I said the target is probably something like 414. I'm looking at the spider, the SP500 ETF, but it works the same if you're using the SP500 as well. So pulling back to about the 414 area has done so. The next target is somewhere around like the 392 area. We need a stronger confirmation to say that this key support area, 414, has broken down and it's headed there for a bigger pullback. That's entirely possible, pullback and then bounce up. Or can bounce off here and keep going. Depends on what, Jerome Powell says at Jackson Hole. Now, but however, what is it that we're going to be looking at on Bitcoin? So if you are not caught up with what I'm saying yet, here's a quick recap. Basically, in the last two videos, one I've said, okay, I've said we're now in a big bounce 5 weeks ago, and the markets have bounced up a lot. Are we still in a big bounce? Yes. I don't think much has changed, unless you tell me, you can prove to me that inflation is not falling off very quickly again. So then I would say, okay, we're probably not in a quick bounce anymore. So now, a week ago I said, but we're having a pullback now. And that's exactly what we've seen. I've warned in my Discord and on Twitter that Bitcoin is pulling back to about the 21.5 area. It's gone a little bit lower than what I expected, to about 20.7, but it's essentially fluctuating around the 21.0 to 21.5 area. Now the question is, does it pull back more? Or does it make a double bottom? Does it make a higher bottom? Does it make a lower bottom? Or does it bounce up just like the SP500? So here's the thing. What I'm basing a lot of my forecasts off is basically what the stock market or the SP500 was doing at this time during when inflation was really high during the 70s, and they had these peak inflations. We saw 3 big bounces, right? So the conclusion I'm getting is that, to be very precise, the SP500 almost always makes a big bounce when inflation peaks. And it looks like we're right now in that environment, right? Because inflation looks like it's peaking. Oil prices looks like it's gone down a lot. Wheat, grain prices, copper prices, steel prices, iron ore prices, looks like it's falling off. So we're in this peak inflation bounce. However, that is not Bitcoin, folks, we're looking at. That is the SP500. Why do we look at Bitcoin? Because Bitcoin was not around back then in the 70s. Why are we comparing to the 70s? Because it was peak inflation back then. So what I'm saying is this. The NASDAQ wasn't even really around back then, or it was so small that it wasn't really significant. So everyone looks at the SP500 chart because that's where most of the money, you want to see where most of the money in the market is going, so it's a significant comparison, where else there's no point comparing it. So all we know is that we know the SP500 makes a big bounce during these sort of peak inflation periods. Does the NASDAQ make a big bounce as well? We have to guess, we have to infer. I think it does, because if the SP500 makes like a 30-40% bounce, then I think the NASDAQ probably makes a big bounce, or even bigger, right, than 30-40%, because usually it's more volatile. It has a higher beta for those who are technically minded. Bitcoin and crypto and altcoins, do they make a bounce? I think so, because they follow the stock market. But do they make a bigger bounce, or do they make a smaller bounce? That is anybody's guess. Well, so far, you could say ETH has made a much bigger bounce because Ethereum has doubled, more than doubled, has gone up 1.8x or 1.5x from its low of 880 or whatever when it went to 2100. But however, Bitcoin has been a bit lackluster. Bitcoin's only gone up like 35%, 33%, which is still a bigger bounce, than the SP500. So let's have a look at Bitcoin. Essentially, Bitcoin has made a bigger bounce, but keep in mind, Bitcoin has fallen so much. Keep in mind that Bitcoin has fallen and Ethereum has fallen something like 75%. So after falling 75% from a high of 69K to 17K, making a 33% bounce isn't very much. So if what I'm saying now is this, what will be helpful is two things I'm trying to say, two things. The SP500, judging from the past, right, it may or may not make a new high. I expect the bounce to continue. And if the bounce continues, it may or may not make a new high. Here's the thing. The SP500, if you look at it, didn't even have that big of a drop. Bitcoin went down 75%. Ethereum went down something like 75-80%. And if you look at like AVAX, Solana, Dogecoin, any of those cryptos you could name, a lot of them went down, like Sand, Mana, Loopring, a lot of them went down 90%, 95%, right? SP500 only went down 23%, and now it's having a bounce. It could easily pull back to something like this here, to say 3,900, 3,850, and then bounce up again, right? And then finish the year somewhere around here, or even here, to a slight new high or slightly below the new high. For a double top, whatever it is, I think the bounce will continue after a pullback. The pullback could have ended right here because we're a resistance right here. It can go down a little bit more, but I expect essentially for the next 3 months or so the bounce to continue. Might even go a little bit higher, right? That's what's happening with the SPY, the SP500. It didn't fall very much, only a 23% pullback, and then a bigger bounce like we see in peak inflation. Like 30-40% bounce would put it into a new high. Bitcoin obviously needs to do a lot more than that. Say Bitcoin went down from 69K to 17K. That's a 75% drop. 75% drop. So from 17K to hit a new high, it would need to do 4x. So Bitcoin needs to do a 4x, right, to hit a new high from 17K. If Bitcoin doubles, it only goes to 34K. If it triples, it only goes to 51K. So keep all of that in mind, right? So let's say if SP500, if I have to take a wild guess, I'm thinking something like the SP500 comes close to a double top, maybe even goes a little bit over, which isn't a huge deal because it goes down 23% and makes 23% back. Well, of course, when it goes down, it means to bounce something like 33% in order to get back. But however, Bitcoin and Ethereum goes down 75, right? Even 80% in the case of Ethereum, and it could double or even triple, right? If Bitcoin doubles, it would only get to, say, 34K. If it doubles, it only gets to about 51K, say here. If it doubles, it gets to 34K here. If it triples, it gets to 51K, about here, right? And we've seen Ethereum. Let's pull up Ethereum. Ethereum has doubled, has more than doubled, has gone close to tripling. ETH, USDT. Okay, we've seen Ethereum has gone close to doubling, tripling, and it's basically, its low was at 880, right? Oh, gee, okay, I'll make it bigger. Its low was at 880, and its high is at what? 2,026. So that's 1.5. That's 150% gain. It's more than doubling. It's double and a half, right? It's made a double and a half gain, but it's still only just at 2,000, just barely above 2,000, and it's way more than 50% down. It's less. I'm like still 60% down from the top. So this is the kind of situation I'm imagining. In a big bounce like this, it's hard to say. That's point number one. The point I'm trying to make is that basically, Bitcoin, SP500, right? SP500 goes down 23%, Bitcoin and goes down 75%. Altcoins go down 90 to 95%, like Sand and Mana, like Loopring, Doge, a lot of those altcoins. And then Bitcoin, SP500 bounces 15-20%, and then or even a little bit more. It can create a new high by the end of the year or early next year. It's possible, or goes close to a new high and it pulls back. Bitcoin can do more percentage-wise, but it can't make a new high. I highly doubt it goes to 68K, 69K. Bitcoin can do more percentage-wise. It can double, and that's 34K. It can triple, and it can go to 51K. It needs to quadruple, do a 4x to go to 68, 69K. So I'm saying, I'm ruling out that probability. That's probably like less than 1% probability. I don't think that's going to happen. I'd say 99% it's going to make a bigger bounce from here. 28K is where I'm looking for to begin with. It might go even higher after this pullback to 20. It's hit 20K, 20.7 already. That's the point number one I'm trying to make. Point number two, how far can this pull back? How far does it go? Okay. Now, again, the SP500. We do know that this was probably the bottom if inflation has peaked. If inflation hasn't peaked, if you see oil prices going up again, if you say wheat prices going up again, if you see natural gas prices breaking to new height, which it is, then that's probably not peak inflation. Then forget what I've said so far. But it looks like it is. I think 70% chance we have some sort of peak inflation for now. At least it'll last for maybe a year or two. If that's the case, then SP500 from past records should not take out this old bottom. So SP500 should not go below 3,600, right? That was the bottom. So it pulls back. Maybe this is the as far as it pulls back and bounces up. Maybe it pulls back even further to around 3,850 and then bounces up. When it does that, makes a higher bottom. You see, it makes a bottom, a higher high, a higher low, a higher bottom or higher low, and then pushes up, right? Now, for Bitcoin, because it's a different animal, so we don't know where its pullback is going to be. If SP500 pulls back more, there's every chance Bitcoin can come and do this around 18K and then bounce up. That would make it a double bottom and then bounce up. Or even a slightly lower bottom to say 17.2, 17.1, 17.0 and make a head and shoulders pattern and then bounce up. So all we know from historical records is that Bitcoin, is that SP500 will probably, I'm betting on SP500 and probably the NASDAQ to make a higher low and then bounce up. A higher bottom and bounce up. Bitcoin, if it turns from here, which is possible, around 20.7 and bounces up, that'd be a higher bottom. I'm saying there's, say, a 50% chance it comes down to about 17, 18K and make a double bottom and then goes up. It's hard to say. Is that going to be lower than the previous low, which was 17.6? What if it comes down to 17.5, 17.4, right? Around here and bounces up. What if it comes down to slightly higher, like 18.2, right? 18.2 and bounces up. Both those scenarios are what I would call a double bottom. I think there's a 50% chance it makes some sort of double bottom. Double bottoms are not exact. It doesn't mean it comes exactly to 17.6, right? It means maybe slightly higher by a couple of hundred. 18.1, maybe slightly lower, 17.1, and then bounces up. So those are the scenarios I'm looking for. In general, I think this is a buy the dip type of opportunity. We've just had 2 days ago, you saw in one of my shorter 60-second videos, I've just said that the one of the most important signals in Bitcoin, which is the hash ribbons, have also crossed over, and that's always been a good signal. So I do think if you're a long-term believer in Bitcoin, now is probably the time to buy. Not financial advice, but I'm doing that. I'm buying a little bit more because the hash ribbon signal and because of this pullback. I mean, what's the difference between buying at 20.7 or 18K? If you think Bitcoin is going to 200K, if you believe in long-term future of Bitcoin,